We're going to talk about the craziest day that we had as a wedding photographer and videographer. And let me tell you, strap in because this is intense. I mean, it was very much like a triple whammy when it comes to just things that are out of your control and just how we sort of dealt with them. And it took me a long time to talk about it because I think I kind of had PTSD after this day. And yeah, I think we're finally ready to talk about it.
So let's bring you all the way back to 2022.
Yeah, this is May 2022.
Okay, good. At least I remember that.
Let's preface this by saying that this couple had already postponed their wedding because they were originally supposed to get married in 2020. They had postponed their wedding 2 times, and when they went to postpone it to this new date, their original photographer actually wasn't even available, so they ended up hiring us. And we were available on their date, and we obviously were excited to capture it, et cetera, et cetera. It was at a venue we actually, I don't think, had really shot at before, and it was super close to our house, so all the sort of bonus things that we were excited about. The day before the wedding, the bride calls me, or I don't know if she called me or sent me a message, and said that she was bringing decor out of her home to bring to the venue, and she stepped down the stairs wrong and broke her leg.
This is the day before the wedding.
This is the day before the wedding. So this isn't even the wedding, right? I never had that before. I've never had a bride who's broken her leg the day before her wedding or had a cast on at her wedding. So this was definitely new territory for me. We felt awful, and I knew just based on having the conversation with her that it was going to be pretty chaotic on that day because she was going for surgery that night at like midnight or something. And so would come to her wedding the next day drugged up on whatever they gave her in a cast, and somehow figuring out how she's going to finally get married after all this time with a broken leg.
Yeah, how are you supposed to walk down the aisle with a broken leg? You know, there's so many uses for a leg on a wedding day, especially as a bride.
With a big dress and all the things. So this poor couple, they decide they're still going ahead. Like, obviously, they'd already postponed this thing. It was happening. And I don't blame them. Obviously, it's a very, very crazy story just to have that happen, right? Like, you think, okay, broke her leg the night before the wedding. That's a crazy story. How do we get through that? That is not even the craziest part about this wedding.
That was the preface, the pre-game to what was coming next.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I felt terrible. Like, I really felt terrible for her. And so I went to you and I said, you're coming with me as a second shooter. What if you just offered to do video of their ceremony and speeches? So you'll second shoot the rest of the day, but just do some video for them. It'll just be like a nice sort of pick-me-up for her because she might be so drugged out she doesn't even remember what she says or remembers what happened. And so I thought, as a nice thing, let's just surprise her and we'll just let her know that we're going to do video on the day. And we did, right? Like, that was our plan. You brought all of your equipment, and in the morning when we showed up, we said, hey, I know that, like, you've literally been awake all night and you probably haven't slept since yesterday. You just went through major surgery and you're trying to just get through it, but I wanted to let you know that we're going to surprise you and offer to capture your ceremony and your speeches on video so that you can remember them. And I know she was so excited. She was thrilled that this was going to happen, and it was just like a nice, like, just like a way to sort of bring the like positivity up, if that makes sense.
Because that's what we're all about, is bringing the positivity up.
Well, I imagined being in her shoes, and I just thought, wow, there's no way that I would remember. I barely remember hours, not having gone through what she went through. I don't remember all of, what I said or anything like that.
And that's why video is really important.
And honestly, it just felt like a nice thing to do. It was the beginning of the season for us.
Yeah, good karma for the rest of the season.
But it wasn't just that. It was just, you weren't busy. Like, if this had happened in October, probably wouldn't have done it. But it was the beginning of the season. It was just a nice thing to do. Okay, Flash forward, I arrive, we tell her this, she's all excited. It's time to do their first look. Now, we kept getting like warnings on our phones, but it wasn't like something that we necessarily paid attention to, because I found at that time anyways that we would get these like radar warning things on our phones all the time, that there was a storm coming or maybe a tornado watch or whatever. These kind of warnings all the time. But it wasn't really something that we felt like we had to worry about in our area. I felt like it goes off, but it could be like from here to Toronto.
Yeah, because they had already set up their ceremony site to be outdoors. And when you looked outside, you looked at the clouds, it didn't seem like it was going to be anything from it. So we kind of disregarded those warnings and headed out to do the first look at a golf course, which was attached to the venue. Essentially, the venue is the golf course. So we brought the groom out there, and the bride got into a golf cart.
But that took a while, right? Like, don't forget.
With a broken leg.
By the time you have to imagine that by the time it was time to do the first look and getting the warnings and sort of the venue owner saying like, hey, if we're going to do a first look before the storm, we should probably do it soon. It's not like she just like, okay, walked and got in the golf cart, right?
Well, the walking part was hard.
From the time we got into the golf cart, it took about 15 minutes. Now, as we were driving out to the golf course, I literally could see the trees were like bent over, basically. And it was windy as hell. And you were standing there with the groom, and he was looking the other way. And I was very, very unsure of what to do in that moment, because obviously I really wanted her to have this moment, but it just happened so quickly, I guess is the best word to say.
We were committed, though.
We were committed.
Yeah. We were doing it no matter what.
So we get her out of the golf cart. She hobbles over to him, and he turns around, sees her. We're taking photos.
Maybe a minute worth of photos.
Her dress is literally in the air. Okay? Her dress is in the air, the trees are bent over, and next thing it starts to pour rain. Like, not just like a little spitting, a little warning, no. It is pouring buckets of rain. So, of course, what happens? We rush to get her into the cart. The venue owner is driving, and he drives her off.
Oh, you're missing some important parts there.
I know. He drives her off.
Okay.
And then I jump into the cart with the groom, and I have your camera and my camera, and I'm trying to hold them because now the rain is not just coming down like straight, it's coming sideways, and I'm trying to protect our gear. Luke decides to run into the building away from the golf cart.
And we're far from the building. I was sprinting.
And then the golf cart accidentally runs into something.
No, not your golf cart.
Not mine. Not mine. The one with the broken leg and the bride slams into something, and then literally the bride almost falls out of the golf cart. He grabs her so she doesn't, and then he tries to back up, and her dress gets caught on the wheel of the golf cart, spinning in the mud. And then I'm with the groom, and I'm holding these cameras, and I'm getting soaked, and shingles are flying off the roof at us. And I'm soaked, and I kind of get out and run in the building and kind of go through. Of course, the power is out at this point. Next thing you know, I kind of make my way to the front where the bride was, and she is standing in the entrance to the building, sobbing her eyes out, and rightfully so. And she just said that she hobbled her way on her newly broken foot to get inside. And she looked like a wet rat, the poor thing. She looked awful, and she was crying, and I had no idea what to do.
Well, I could just imagine this bride with a broken leg kind of just leaning against the doorway. Her hair is just soaked, so it is just a mop. And her makeup is ruined. And we haven't even done the ceremony yet. All the guests are now inside. The ceremony site outside was just destroyed.
Yeah, all of our gear got shot off.
Oh, that's right. I had some gear already out there, but luckily the DJ brought some of my audio stuff inside because we were heading straight into ceremony right after that first look, so I had already set up some things.
Yeah, and the tripods had been launched onto the ground.
Yeah.
And your audio equipment flew off the table. The DJ's equipment flew off. All the chairs, all the decor, everything was tossed. And we get inside, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. It's pitch black. We can't see anything. There's no lights. So we're just using our phones. And she goes, fuck it. I want to get married anyways. Do you remember that? And I thought in my head, like, it's pitch black in here. Like, it's pitch black. Like, it's not even like there's natural light really in this space. It's very, very dark. So and you were doing video, which I don't know what your ISO was, probably maxed out to the max on your camera.
Yeah, I like to call it artsy grain in the video.
And she goes, fuck it, I want to get married anyways. And she literally has her groom carry her down the aisle with her soaking wet hair and her soaking wet dress and his soaking wet suit. And we're all wet. I mean, I'm soaked from head to toe. I look also like a rat. You're soaked. Our camera gear was thankfully okay.
We lit some candles.
We lit some candles.
And so they had a candlelight ceremony.
In the dark. You could barely see anything except my photos actually aren't that bad. I mean, if
you had a flash. So.
I put 3 flashes up, yeah. And I lit it up like the 4th of July in there to make sure that you could see them. But yeah, they got married.
Yeah. And then we ended up, the storm passed, and we ended up going onto the balcony deck to do the speeches, just because we needed some daylight to be able to capture some photos and videos. So they went through and had their speeches out there, which were pretty heartfelt. They were kind of nice to hear after the events that we had gone through. And next thing you know, it's dinner time.
And what happens?
And the venue approaches us and says, we don't have power, therefore we cannot feed anyone. We can't cater to all the dinner. And because they can't do that, they had to kick everyone out by 6 o'clock, I think it was. And at this point, it was like 5:30, 6-ish. I don't know what time it was. But essentially, we had half an hour to vacate the premises. And nobody got fed. Everyone was just trying to find a solution to what we could do.
Yeah, when that venue owner came to me, I literally looked at him and was like, you cannot do this. You cannot kick them out. Like, where are they going to go? You know, like, it has already been terrible.
Now let's relocate 50 people to somewhere.
In the meantime, I'm also calling the hairdresser who did her hair, because I'm like, well, at least if the sun comes out, because it was all of a sudden, like, we had that big storm. It was about maybe an hour's worth of, you know, not even, I don't even think it was that long, but it was just this big windstorm that came through. It was called a derecho. And it was this massive storm that literally just tore trees from their roots, like, and knocked them over all across the city. We lost power for days, essentially. The storm was pretty terrible. It wasn't tornadoes, but I think did more damage than the tornadoes have done in this area. And of course, that meant it was very difficult driving anywhere, because there was lots of power lines down, there was lots of trees down everywhere. And I had called the hairdresser to come back to fix her hair, and then she was trying to get back, and then we realized, like, we weren't even going to be able to be at that venue. So the venue owner had to break the news to her, and I remember just, like, feeling for her. And I literally went to you and I said, we have a generator at home.
We live 10 minutes away.
What if they just come and, like, have their reception or have a party in our garage?
And I reluctantly agreed.
No, it was not reluctantly. I mean, it was just...
You have to do it at that point. There's really no way around it. You've witnessed what this poor couple has gone through.
Yeah.
And you really just pull out anything you can to be able to make them feel a bit better at this point.
Yeah, so, okay. And on top of all this, it was also our nanny's first day watching our children. And so we were dealing with that because the generator had to go on and she lost power in most of the house. Like, the main things were good. Like, we have, like, lights and we have a fridge and we have, you know, the garage opens and the well works, so we have running water. But it's not the whole house that is usable. So we're dealing with that as well.
I forgot it was her first day.
It was her first day. And yeah, and then we decided to invite, I don't think all 50 people came. I think maybe like 30 people came
like that, yeah.
to our place. We ordered pizza. I don't know if you remember that, or they ordered pizza.
Oh, trust me, that's remember, it has something to do with food. I remember it. Okay, I remember that part. But I was so hesitant that anywhere was going to be open and be able to deliver anything because we had run out of power. Maybe restaurants without power, they don't have a generator, they can't cook anything. So it was not a great situation to be in, but we found a pizza place that was open, and that saved us. I think that we got to feed everyone.
Yeah, and we pulled out tables, and
someone got booze from his
all the
house.
Neighbors. Yeah, all the neighbors ended up all their friends essentially went back to their homes, grabbed booze, grabbed ice that they could find, and literally came and they set up and we played a speaker outside. They had their first dance in our driveway, and we did a few photos of them because the hairdresser was finally able to make it and did her hair for her. And sunset came out and it was beautiful, but of course by this time the poor girl was exhausted. I remember her just crying in my living room being like, is this the sign? I'll never forget. And I just felt awful for her. I was like, of course it's not a sign. Like, this is just terrible, terrible luck. And you're still marrying the man of your dreams, and we're going to do some nice photos. It obviously just did not turn out how she ever could have imagined. But I guarantee you she has the best wedding story out of anybody.
Best/worst.
Yeah.
Like depending how you look at it.
She wins, for sure. Hands down, she wins when it comes to the absolute craziest day to get married. And I'll never forget just running around feeling like, oh my gosh, how is this happening? Like, how are we here? How are we hosting this couple's wedding? It was a lot, definitely a lot to take in, but I'm so glad that we did it.
And that's how we started the 2022 season. If you can imagine, after that, that's all we could really talk about with everyone else was, hey, where were you on this day? Because we've got a doozy for you.
It's so true. So if you have a crazy wedding story, we would love to hear it. And maybe you can write into us what it was, because I feel like this one is very, very, very crazy and very much a one-of-a-kind situation, but I'm sure there is all kinds of situations that have been out there, and you are not prepared for this. Let me tell you, there is no amount of preparation that you can do in this situation, but just know that trying to go that extra mile for your couple is definitely something that we've learned that is so important, and it's something that I feel very good that we were able to try and salvage that day as much as we possibly could.
I mean, we would host many other weddings here if it really came down to that.